It is great to be here. Thank you for coming out. Can you all hear me? So what I want to do is I put some slides together, and I want to go through this presentation about how and some of the ways in which color matters in our country. Probably we'll also just touch a little bit on how it matters in other countries as well. And once we go through those slides, I think towards the end I want to spend a little time maybe trying to talk about how we can begin to break that down, right? And that sort of depends on where you are, right? Like you may say, well, this is a bunch of crap, right? Like color doesn't matter, right? Hopefully at the end of the presentation or during this presentation, you will see some of the negative ways in which it matters, but there are also lots of positive ways in which it matters too. This presentation doesn't go into much of those positive reasons why, for example, we need to know color. So I'll just give you a couple of quick ones. You know, first of all, you know, we are probably made by whoever we've been made by for a reason, right? So if you believe in a higher power, somebody created this rainbow of skin colors that we see, and there's no reason why we should act like we don't see that, right? We also know that there are tremendous differences, even in health, for example. Black women get breast cancer at a rate different from white women. If you don't know the skin color, if you don't know that, then when you're treating the person, somebody's going to get lost in that shuffle, right? Same thing happens in education, right? There are some schools that are mixed. They have black, white, Asian, Latino, Native American populations, and they're performing differently depending on the population. So you could look at a particular school, and the school looks like, wow, they're meeting all of the, dotting all their I's, crossing all their T's, they're doing everything they're supposed to do. But then once you break it down racially, you see that the black students are towards the bottom of that. You'll see that the Latino students are towards the bottom of that, right? And if you don't know that, if you've bought into this notion that we shouldn't collect racial data, that racial data doesn't matter, then those kids are going to be lost. They're going to be left behind, because overall it looks like the school is doing well, right? So there are a lot of reasons why we should actually have that data, right, and keep track of that kind of stuff. But this talk today is going to get more into some of the more negative ways in which color matters in our world. So does it matter? And so of course I would say yes. And where does it matter? And I would say that it actually matters everywhere. I am putting on a global colorism conference at WashU on April 2nd and 3rd. It's free. Hopefully you can drive up and attend. We have people coming from Russia, Israel, Paris, Brazil, India. All of these people from all over the world are going to talk about colorism in their country. I was in Israel this summer to attend a conference on colorism in Israel. Colorism is worldwide. The preference for lighter skin over darker skin is a worldwide phenomenon. It is worldwide. The first time I think it resonated with me outside of the US was when I taught in China a few years ago. I think it was 2009 or so, and it was during that trip that I came to realize that even among Chinese people, right, that lighter is preferred over darker, right? I've witnessed the same, experienced the same thing in Japan. And so you kind of, that blew me, right? Like I was like, well, wow, like to me, everybody looks the same, right? They all look like the same skin colors, but that turns out not to be true, right? And so there's a lot of classism to that, right? To the extent that, you know, the people with the darker skins are the ones, Chinese people with darker skins are, you know, they're not the wealthy people. They're not the ones who get to stay in the homes, right? They're the ones who have to work out in the fields, quote unquote, right? right? And so there's a stigma attached to that. But it is absolutely true that lighter is preferred. In my book, in the first chapter, which deals with the international aspects of colorism, I have interviews from several of my Chinese female students who told me stories about how their parents wanted them to marry white males, not even like Chinese males, right? But white males, and this push towards getting more whiteness into the blood, into the family. So this is even throughout Africa. Some people are sort of blown away by that, right? Like you're in a place where people are of color, right? But most often you're still in a place where people were colonized, right? And so these colonized people have sort of interpreted and digested, and they reproduce and they spit out a lot of what their colonizers instilled in them. So I'm a lawyer. I have actually a program that we run in Ghana, and where we send law students to work in these NGOs, and so I will go over there periodically and check them, you know, just sort of see how things are going. And it sort of blew my mind, for example, the first time I went to Ghana and found the court system is identical to the British system. So now in Ghana, they've been independent. They've gotten their independence from Britain about over 50 years now. But the courts are, you know, you see these very dark people with these white long wigs on, right? That come right out of some book somewhere, and you're like, what? You know, but they're still doing a lot of the same things, right? That they've done all of their lives, right? That has been done throughout their history. So even though they're free, even though they're independent, they're still reproducing a lot of those same things. Some of that reproduction has to do with the fact that lighter skin has the power. Lighter skin has the money. Lighter skin has the wealth. And so as a result, they prefer lighter skin over darker. And so you have many parts of Africa where women bleach their skin so that they can get married. Because if they're my complexion or darker, they have a really great chance that no one wants them, right? And that's a big thing in the parts of Africa we've been in. If you know, I'm from New York. Most of my friends are not married, and they don't care, right? But that's very different than the culture in Ghana. Right? The culture in Ghana is to get married, to have a family, right? So it's a big shame on you when that doesn't happen, right? And so these women are doing these things to get a husband, to get a better life, quote unquote. This is from them. So they use these products to bleach their skin. Most of these products have tremendous and unregulated mercury levels in the skin, and so they cause this blotching of the skin sometimes. You can Google this and look at some of these horrific results. This happens in Latino communities as well. Even in Arizona, there was a big problem a few years ago with a lot of the Mexican population, the women who were bleaching their skins. And guess what? Sometimes when you take that product, it affects your child. Right? That is something that passes through the placenta, and then the child gets mercury poisoning, right? The child ends up being sick, right? And all of this is towards the quest to become lighter, right? And so this happens everywhere. Korea, India is huge on colorism, huge. I shared a video. I have to tell you this. You know, it's going to be like, God, that tacky, but I have to tell you. So 2 years ago, maybe about a year and a half ago, India, first of all, big on skin bleaching. They buy more skin bleaching products than they do Coca-Cola or tea, and that's huge. You go on Google and figure out the numbers. That's big, big time on skin bleaching, okay? The other thing about India that's very interesting is that men bleach their skin in India as well. Not every man, right? Not every woman. We're not always ever talking about all, right? But lots of them bleach their skin as well. And that's unlike other cultures. Usually this bleaching thing is a woman thing. It's a beauty thing, right? And so, but there, you see the men do it as well. which is another interesting thing. Now, this is the kicker. This is the thing you're going to say, ooh, that's gross. She should, you know, too much information. They came out with a product a year ago, a skin bleaching product. You know what it was for? For the genital area, for the genital area. Google it. I'm telling you, everything I'm saying today is easily discoverable. And if you can't find it, you email me and I will send it to you. So let's think about that for a minute, right? Like you buy a bleaching product that you would use on your private parts. Now, presumably, those private parts aren't exposed when you're walking down the street. So how does the person know you're lighter in some areas than others? Like how do they know that? How do you communicate? I might look dark, but I got it, right? I'm okay, right? I'm really light where it counts, right? Like, how does that happen? You know, it's a very interesting product, right? But that is sad, right? Right? And so when you Google this, you'll see the commercial. Right, and so in the commercial, this couple, I mean, I would not have even described this Indian woman as dark, but her and her husband are sitting down, he's reading the paper, he looks pissed, and she's sad, and then she goes out and buys this cream, and then the next time you see them, they're happy, they're talking to each other, you know, it's an interesting dynamic, right? So this happens everywhere. It is really a worldwide problem. And so this is some of the stuff we're going to talk about in April when we do this conference at WashU, because we want to try to figure out, you know, how is this? Where does this come from? Right? When you look at Chinese societies, when you look at Japanese societies, they were in existence many, many thousands of years, right, before there was a Western influence, right? So where is this coming from, right? And so it is, that's some of the stuff that we will be hoping to look at. And no matter what the answer is, we have to figure out a resolution to that. We have to get to this place where it doesn't matter and determine, you know, wealth or marriage or success or whether you get a job or all of this other kind of stuff, right? But those are some of the things we're going to be looking at. We also see that it is nationwide throughout the U.S., and that's what most of our talk will deal with today. Is that, you know, people always say, oh, well, you got a black president, you know, you got brown people who are in the White House, you know, we overcame, right? Everything is good now, right? And not so much, right? Because even though that has happened, we will still see lots of examples, and I'll share some with you today, where we can see that color still matters, right? It's not like you have, you know, one person who changes this for the nation, right? These are long-held beliefs that don't transform overnight. The book also deals with the fact that colorism exists within communities, right? So you see what we have in terms of this upside down pyramid, right? You're looking at globally, then we're looking at the US, and then we spend time in our book looking at within communities. And the community that I focus on, although you can do other communities as well, is the African American community. And so I spend time talking about how within the black community, even in 2015, there is a preference for lighter skinned blacks over darker skinned blacks, right? And so I have a little link here. There's a lot of drama going on with the links and stuff, so I don't want to spend time. Are you going to do it? Oh, okay. This is a 7-minute link, so this will give you a piece of what happens in terms of the black community. They'll get the sound too, I take it.
Every black people have a big butt and big boobs. Loud, obnoxious. We get it.
Light skin being more attractive than dark skin.
But we're not smart. We're this way, we're that way. And a lot of times we have to prove ourselves as not being true.
At a young age, I already knew the standards for a girl like me. As I become older, they become more obvious.
You have to have permanent hair, relaxed hair, you know, straight hair or like blonde hair, you know, little waves or something. And if it's natural, that's good hair. Like bad hair is hair you have to relax because it's kinky.
Like it's not like a pale and a half, like natural hairstyles, or like if they are natural, they have to be like the curly head, like black girl, or something that looks mixed or something.
And I remember when I first started wearing my hair natural, at first my mom was okay with it, and she thought it was nice. And then after like the second day, she was like, oh, stop that. She was like, you're starting to look African. I was like, well, I am African, and that really pissed me off.
There are standards that are imposed upon us, like, you know, you're prettier if you're light skinned.
I knew people in the past that like just like wanted to be light skinned, not for any particular reason, you know, because they love themselves. I mean, they love themselves except for, you know, the color of their skin.
Like my siblings are all lighter than me, and my mom, she's dark skinned, but she's lighter than me. So like I noticed, and I was like, hey, how come I'm the darkest, and you know everybody else is so light? And I don't know. Since I was younger, I also considered being lighter as a form of beauty, or you know, beautiful, more beautiful than being dark skinned. So I used to think of myself as being ugly because I was dark skinned.
I knew people who actually like went out there and got, you know, bleaching cream and everything. They actually like laid in the tub, like poured like capfuls of bleach into it just so they could like see if their skin would get lighter.
But yeah, my aunt that lives in Honduras, she basically started using skin bleaching cream when she was about 25. And she started her oldest daughter on it when she was about 11. And then she has an even younger daughter that was about 6 when she started using the skin bleaching cream on her.
I've seen people say that I would never marry a dark-skinned man because, you know, because I don't want that in my gene pool.
On the other hand, like some girls have their issues too. We've been called high yellow, conceited, house nigga. I feel like both sides have their issues.
I guess I sort of felt like there was not any attention towards me because of maybe my skin color, or because my hair was kinky, or you know, just really that. Or even when I was younger, like say there was I don't know, a doll. I used to have a lot of dolls, but most of them were just white dolls with long straight hair that I would comb, and I would be like, oh, I wish I was just like this Barbie doll. In Brown versus Board of Education, the famous case that desegregated schools in the 1950s, Dr. Kenneth Clark conducted a doll test with black children. He asked them to choose between a black doll and a white doll. In most instances, the majority of the children preferred the white doll. I decided to reconduct this test as Dr. Clark did to see how we've progressed since then. Can you show me the doll that you like best or that you like to play with? That one?
I like to play with this.
And can you show me the doll that is the nice doll? And why is that the nice doll?
He's white.
And can you show me the doll that looks bad? Okay.
After this one, I want to stop. Wait, I'll let you know, okay?
And why does that look bad?
Because it's black.
And why do you think that's a nice doll?
Because she's white.
And can you give me the doll that looks like you?
Yeah.
15 out of...
So it runs a few more minutes, but it gives you a sense, right, of this issue and how it does manifest within the black community, for example. I have talked with some Latino people, and I understand that there are similar issues. We've also had some success, not a lot. We've talked to some people in the Native American community, and there's some similar issues there as well. And so this is like happening, this particular video that we saw was a reproduction of the doll study of 1947 that was used in the Brown versus Board of Education case. This one was redone in 2005, right? And then as you might know, It was redone again in 2010, right, by CNN. That would be a phenomenal one to watch. That was the first one that not only included black children, but also included some Indian children, Asian children, and white children. So it was a much broader study in that sense. And it also talked to children as young as 3. They range from 3 to 10, I think. And same results. Same results as this, right? It didn't matter whether the child, the 3-year-old, now just think about that for a minute. When you're 3, like, they haven't been on the planet like a long time, like, right? Like, I think we can agree. Like, what do you know at 3? Well, they know a lot at 3. They know black is bad and white is good, right? And that's one of the things that this video shows, is the same thing that you saw in very young kids. And so that's why we know that this stuff starts really early, right? You can't wait till people are in college to start having these conversations. You can't wait till people are in the workforce to do these diversity days, right? We need to get to people at a much earlier level if we really want to have this diverse world, right, that respects all skin colors. So anyway, this is a problem in this triangle at every level, right? So there are all kinds of ways we discriminate against people, right? And I'm not going to show this particular excerpt because I want to hurry up my conversation. But there are lots of, I love this this group called, I don't know, this television show called What Would You Do? And they have just some phenomenal vignettes. And so this is one about this store who refuses service to a person that they believe is a Muslim. And it's just really impactful, right? And so there are lots of different ways that we discriminate against people and we put people in these boxes. My talk today and what I'm focusing on, right, is skin color, right? But I just want to sort of acknowledge that, yes, this is way more than skin color. We've got other fish to fry as well. So one of the things that we see, how do you know if you have a preference? You know, most people, certainly people who often come to these things, and most people generally would think that they don't have a preference, that they're not, you know, when you start talking about this, you know, people's walls goes like, I'm not a racist, I'm not this, you know, people are just like, nobody's saying that, nobody's saying that, let me talk to you, come back, right? You're trying to get to people and say, listen, let's have a conversation about this. How can we figure out if you have different reactions? The older studies that they used to do, right, related to paying college kids, right? Like, you know, they send out, they didn't have email back then, but I don't know how they got to people before email. You know what was life before the internet? Like, do anybody of us know, right? I just can't even, I was here, but I can't imagine, I don't even know, right? But they sent out notices, right? And they would get students, they would pay students to come in and they would strap students up. You know, you're gonna walk the streets and when you come back and we're gonna read this tape. So they would take people's pulse rates, they would take people's heart rates, they would measure breathing, they measured eye movement, right, of people looking at pictures, right? And they got tremendous data exists that no matter what your skin color, no matter what your ethnicity, college students who, if a black person walked past them, their heart beat faster. The pulse was faster. If they looked at a black picture, the eye movements moved more rapidly, right? And this is whether you, the person strapped up looking at the picture, were white, black, Latino, right, Asian, right? Like we all had this, and that was sort of the arcane time. Now they have what they call the implicit association test, and it's on the web, and you can take this test, and the implicit association test allows you to do something similar from the comfort of your home, right? And you can sit in your home, and they have tremendous tests. It's out of Harvard. You can just Google IAT, or the website is there. And you can do, they have one on homophobia, they have one on able-bodiedness, they have one on women and gender, women and family, women and career, age, skin color, black and criminality, all different vignettes. And so the vignette that I often have my students take is the one on skin color. and the one on race. And we all take it, right? Like I take it too. And the one thing that is very disheartening about the test is that almost everybody, quote unquote, fails the test. Even me, and I'm teaching the class, right? And why is that? Like, why does every time I take this test, it shows that I have a preference for lighter skin over darker skin? Why is that? That's because I live in the United States, right? I am a product of my environment, right? And so a lot of this is not about you're a racist, you're this bad, horrible person. You live in a society where the structures, a lot of the benefits you see on television, you see different things that are always about people who don't look like you. So there is something that happens subconsciously to you about how you digest that information, right? And so the IAT is a phenomenal test. It takes like 5 minutes if you take it. And as I said, there are all kinds of tests. And it shows the kinds of stuff that if you think about it, you would say, well, yeah, right? Like over 15 million people have taken these tests. And guess what it shows? We prefer able-bodied people over disabled. We prefer tall people over short people. We prefer thin people over fat people, right? They do this fat test versus skinny test, right? We prefer men over women. We prefer Caucasian over black. We prefer light over dark, right? And so homophobia, right? Like we prefer heterosexual. A lot of things you're like, yeah, that kind of sounds like us, right? Like, I mean, this is not like, oh no, that can never be the truth, right? I mean, that's America, right, in a lot of ways, right? And so these tests have been taken throughout the world. And these are the kind of majority results. This doesn't mean every single person fails. It doesn't mean every single person is like that. But it does show that we have these unconscious feelings. A lot of people who take these tests, their minds are blown. Even me, I took the test 20 times. I was like, that's not right. And I take it again. That's not right. And I take it again. Right? Because that's not me. Right? But who I am consciously and what I think unconsciously don't always match. Right? And that's some of the power of these tests that I like people to take. So I'm going to just give you a little snippet, right, of how this test is. And we're going to do this really quickly, right? So you're going to blind yourself as to the letters. Don't look at the letters. Just say the color out loud really quick, right? And we'll start with this first color in box 1 and go down the full box 1, full box 2, okay? You ready? 1, 2, 3.
Green, red, purple, green, blue, yellow, blue, red, green, yellow, red, purple.
All right, good. Now we're going to do it again, right? And you're going to, again, blind yourself as to the letters. Just say the color, really quickly, like we just did. 1, 2, 3, go.
Green, red, purple, green, blue, yellow, blue,
Right, it's a little harder. It's a little harder because you're looking at it, right? But something is messing with you, right? There's a disconnect in a way, right? And that's the thing that I love about this IAT test. It's similar to this in some ways. You have to act really quickly because it doesn't want you to have time to think. It wants to tap into your unconscious, right? I'm not saying this test is perfect. I'm not invested in this test. I didn't create the test, right? But it is a mechanism that we can use to begin to question, do we have some issues here? Because if we have some issues here, we got to know we have issues here before we can fix them. You know, I always tell people, you know, I love when I'm on the plane, today, you know, and the stewardess always says, you know, if we go down, make sure you can breathe before you help somebody else, right? And that's the same thing with this work, right? Like you can't begin to get into this, right, and try to help others until you fix you. Right? You got to figure out that I have issues. I've got something I've got to deal with. At least be conscious of it, right? All of us have biases. We cannot help it. That's how our mind is structured to help us deal with these things. So the question is becoming conscious of them so that we can correct mismatches, right? You know, and so if it's red, good, right? But if it looks green and then it says red, right? Like you have to be able to sort of tease those things out, right? And that's one of the things that I think that this implicit bias test does. So there've been lots of, I showed you A Girl Like Me, which was a documentary done by a young, I think she was like 20 years old at the time she did it. Last year, or 2 years ago, a documentary came out called Dark Girls, which is a you know, more sophisticated production of that similar kind of test that they went through with the Girl Like Me video you saw. Just yesterday, Light Girls videoed, or debuted, I should say, on the OWN network, and so now it's telling the stories of people with lighter skin, right, and them talking about their sort of feelings and their discrimination. So there's a lot of stuff out there that you could actually look at and deal with, right? So let's talk a little bit about what we know so far, right, about color in America, at least how it sort of impacts brown and black people, right? And this is like, you know, people always say to you, you know, this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? I'm at the top of the tip of the iceberg, right? Like I'm not even doing the whole tip, right? This is a small, quick vignette of the ways in which there are differences in color based on you know, your skin tone. Black and brown people in America have higher unemployment rate, they have more health problems, less access to health care, higher mortality rates. They are on the whole more uneducated, and they're coming from underperforming and underfunded schools. The employment statistics tell us that even black sounding names, you haven't even seen the skin color of the person. The names themselves become a problem. So there's a school at Stanford did a study a few years ago, and this is one of the vignettes, Jamal, which is a black sounding name, versus apparently Brendan is a white sounding name, right? So this is a study that they did, and what they found out was that they had the identical resume, right? And they sent it out. The only thing that was different were the names, right? And they've done this with gender too, with women too, and they found the same thing, like the men get the more callbacks than women. So in this particular thing, as you see here, that Brendan got way more callbacks than Jamal, even though the resume is identical. But that wasn't even the killer, right? The killer, one killer, was that Jamal could be more qualified than Brendan. Right? Like when they set this second set of resumes out, they gave Jamal more degrees. He had more classes. He was more fit for that job. Brendan still got more callbacks than him. And the real killer in the third set was that Brendan was given a criminal record. He still got more callbacks than Jamal. So, and again, I'm the messenger, so don't shoot me, okay? Stanford did the study, and they're a pretty good school, right? So, you know, I'm not talking about, you know, some place in Podunk somewhere, right? You know, this is a research qualified huge institution, right? And this is just a drop in the bucket in terms of the data that's out there, right? And so other examples, in the criminal system, we know there are more stop and frisk, there are more arrests, convictions, longer sentences, higher bails, you're more likely to be on death row. Guess what? Those numbers, whatever they are, increase the darker your skin. Another study out of Stanford, they increase the blacker your features, broader your nose, bigger your lips, curlier your hair, right? Voluntarily reported data. We don't have mandatory data reporting yet coming out of police departments. Show that on average, blacks and brown men are killed twice a week. They're trying, in these studies, USA Today did this study, it came out a few months ago. And when they do this study, they're trying to track similar calls, similar situations, so that we are looking at apples and apples, right? And not apples and oranges, right? And they're still showing these kinds of things. And even in the court system, I'm a lawyer, right? The court system is about justice. Even in the court system, we find that, in fact, in Chicago, not too long, a couple of years ago, there was a lawyer who did article somewhere, and he was talking about how he was very qualified to deal with this particular case. But the case was going to be tried. The case was going to be tried in an all-white community. So he worried and struggled about how he would be perceived, and he thought it would be best if he sent somebody in that community who looked like the people in that community. He thought he was a better lawyer than the person he was going to send, but better didn't matter, right? It doesn't matter if you're better, right? What mattered is who is going to listen to you, who can hear you. And sometimes you have to do these kinds of strategic things, right, in order to get into a person's ears, right? We know black judges. You know, we've seen a lot of law review articles have been written about how their evaluations suffer much more than white judges, right? Black plaintiffs, people who sue, right? Particularly if they're suing a white person, they don't win half as much. And when they do win, they don't win nearly as much, right, as they would if they were a white plaintiff. These kinds of things, right? Mentoring by professors, right? This is at a Wharton school in Pennsylvania. Huge study which showed that professors throughout the country will have a tendency to answer the emails of white-sounding male names, right? So if they answer those emails, if they meet with those students, if relationships are formed, those students are getting something that the other students are not, right? And so that becomes a problem, right? Purchase decisions, right? You know, including homes. I was thinking, I'm going to show you this iPod study a little while ago, but many people, black people will tell you, for example, that, you know, sort of when you're getting ready to sell your home, your real estate agent might tell you to take down all your black work. Take down everything in your house that lets the potential buyer know that you're black, because then they won't buy it if they know that, right? And that happened to me when we were selling our house. I think we were on kid. I had 5 kids. We were on kid 4. I think at the time we needed a bigger house. And so when we were selling our place, my house is full of, you know who I am when you walk to the door, right? Like, so it's everywhere. I've been all over the world. I've got stuff from everywhere, and a lot of African art. And I was like, there will be a hole in every 3 inches if I take down all my artwork, right? Like, it'll look like, you'd be like, damn, this place will fall apart if I move in here. I don't want to move in here, right? The structure is not good, right? So I'm like, I'm not taking down my art. So I did not do it. But that, and it sold, you know, I got an offer 2 days later. So in my case, it was cool. But people have those conversations. My white friends tell me that they have never had people tell them to take down their artwork or take down pictures to show who you are, right? That's what they tell me, right? Now, again, this doesn't mean every single case, but I'm telling you what happened in my experience and what has happened to the other black people I know, right? iPod sales, I'm not sure, well, let me come back to that because I have a picture on that. Who you hire, right? Think about, do you have a diverse network of people that you hire? Do you ever hire black doctors? Do you ever hire black lawyers, black tutors for your kids, right? Like, think about that, right? I'm not talking, maybe, yeah, the person who cuts your grass is black or Latino, right? Or the person who cleans your house is black or Latino. But what about the professional people, right? What about them, right? Of course you know they can do that, but can they be professionals also? Can they give you legal advice? Can they give you medical advice, right? Those things are important. Schools, the suspension rates for brown kids, and the result just came out for girls too, again showing the darker the skin color, the more there's the tie between suspension, expulsions. There's a great Washington Post article that came out a few months ago titled, "My child has been suspended 5 times. He is 3. Right? And again, they're always talking apples and apples, right? So they're talking about, I'm in the classroom, I'm watching this other white 3-year-old jump from chandelier to chandelier. He gets to stay in the classroom, right? My kid jumps on one chandelier, he's out. He's wrong. He jumped the chandelier. But whoever jumps the chandelier needs to go down, right? Like it just shouldn't be the dark people, right? It should be equal, right? Either we all punish or we not, right? This is the conversation that you have to have. I had a similar case like this with my daughter. She's 16 now, in 10th grade. When she was 9, in 9th grade, we had a situation. She's talking in class. She's going to get put in detention. So she talks. I know it. Like, I'm not even trying to say she's not talking. I'm like, yeah, I know she was talking, right? Who was she talking to, right? Talking to these other girls. Did they get in detention? Oh, I can't tell you that because that's confidential information. So I called the parents, right? Because, you know, he didn't know I knew them, right? I called the parents. Did your daughters get put in detention? What are you talking about? When? No. So we had to have a meeting with the principal. I don't mind that my daughter's in detention, but she shouldn't be sitting in there by herself, right? Like if the other people are talking too, everybody goes to detention, or none of us go to detention. You see? I'm just talking fairness, right? Just fairness, equal treatment. iPod sales, okay? This, I forget where this came from. Oh, it's the next picture. So I'm going to show you. Can we clip to the next slide real quick? Probably can. I got all of these things slapped up. Yeah, do that first, and then we'll come back to this slide. I should have moved it up. Sorry about that. I can't. I think it might be Stanford again, but they just did this visible hand study, and this hand study shows a brand new iPod. And the only difference is the color of the hand, right? And again, just tremendous data about how the darker the hand, the less likely that hand was to get offers on eBay, right? If they did get offers on eBay, the offers were coming in at much lower levels than they were coming in for the hands that were lighter, right? They even get into this, and I don't buy stuff on eBay, so I'm not clear really on how it works, but apparently you got to get the product to a person at some point, right? So then they have they track this conversation that occurs. The conversation that occurs with the dark hand versus the lighter hand, and how it's not as pleasant. You don't have as many pleases, as many thank yous. You have more hesitation with giving addresses. All of this kind of stuff, and you're talking about the same identical product. Can we go back to the other slide? So this was a huge study, right, that was done on iPod sales, and what they talk about at the end of this study are similar studies for other products, right? Just based on, it's not one is used, one is this, one is that. They are both identical products and brand new, right? But different results come depending upon the skin color. So I have like this whole list here of different ways in which you can think about this and just kind of figure this out. Is there something to that? You know, people like to say all the time that we're colorblind, right? But are we really colorblind? How does that look? When are we colorblind? When are we colorblind? We're certainly not colorblind in marriage. Over 90% of the people marry the person who is of the same race as them. Even the same color. Right? Over 90% of the people date people who are the same race as them. That can't be colorblind. Like, you know, at some point it's statistically impossible for it to always be, who knew, another black guy, right? Like something, it just gets statistically impossible, right? Adoption statistics, right, show that the darker you are, the more unlikely it is you will be adopted. In fact, these statistics, and these were the data is in our book, show that even sick infants will be adopted over healthy dark infants. Right? The skin is powerful. Look at your friends, right? Your parents' friends. Friends when you were growing up. Look at children's friends. What does the church look like? They often say church is the most segregated place on Sunday mornings, right? Is that still true? Is that colorblind? Did it just happen like that? right? How was that? I already talked to you about the doll studies, right? And so I would beg you to look at the CNN one because it's really a tearjerker. And some of them have the parents who are behind these screens watching their kids. And the parents are like, I don't know who that kid is. I have never heard that kid say, black is not as good as white, and we never talk about race in our home. How could this be? So it's a mind opener for these parents too, right? And so it's worth looking at that. Look at the toys in the kids' homes. I just came across some studies on children's books. I don't know if you saw that New York Times article last year. Last year in 2014, there were 3,200 children's books. 92 of them dealt with people of color as the protagonists, right? That's a little, right? And of those 92 books, it is much more likely that you won't know it's a book about a person of color until you pick it up and open it up. Because the publishers don't want to put any colored people on the cover. They want to whitewash the cover or put art on the cover because they've done studies. Publishers have done studies. White parents don't want to buy books that deal with brown people, right? They just don't. And publishers are about money. Okay, I've just been through this process. They are about money, right? And so they are not saying this, you know, out of just thin air, right? And so there's something to that. Why can't we have, like, imagine if Charlie Brown, I was thinking of him the other day when I was thinking about how Lucy, you guys don't know Charlie Brown, but I used to love these cartoons when I was little, and there was this one chick, Lucy, she used to snatch this ball from him every time he went to go kick it, and I just loved that. I have to go connect with that again because I missed that. But what if Charlie Brown had been brown, right? Like, could you have a story about some kids hanging out and their relationships and all of that? It doesn't have to do with diversity. It doesn't have to do with heavy topics. It's just kids playing, you know? Can they be brown? Those books don't sell in white homes. You know, they put you off in the African American section of the library, right? Or of the bookstore. I had that debate with my own book, you know, when we were trying to market it and trying to get people to put it in bookstores. And, you know, several of the bookstores said, okay, well, because the book came out in January, a year ago, so they were saying, well, you know, Black History Month is coming up, we got you, you know, we got your space. And I was like, look, this isn't just about Black history, right? This is a book about skin color differences throughout the world, throughout the nation, and I give you an example of how it plays out in communities. Everybody needs to be a part of this. If you put me over in the black section, then a person who is particularly a non-black person has to walk over there to go get it, to even know what's over there, right? I want to be blended in with everybody else, right? I don't want to be off segregated, right? And so you have these debates, right? Magazines and doctor's offices. Who are in those magazines? What kind of magazines are there? Are they diverse? Right? Who are the people in the magazines? Look at the models. Look at the people on commercials. Right? When you go to, every time I go, I take my daughter to Sephora, you know, she's getting into makeup. Every time we go there, it's just everybody in the store, all the pictures are of Caucasian people. I like Caucasian people. Some of my best friends are Caucasian, right? You always hear that? It's true, right? Like my girl is Caucasian, one of my best friends. I'm talking about fairness. I'm talking about inclusion. I'm talking about diversity. I'm not talking about hate. Right? I'm not saying white people shouldn't be anywhere in this discussion. I'm saying some brown people should be too. I'm just saying we can't play this game anymore. We've got to start being honest with this discussion. Right? We've got to say it matters. This guy is on fire most of the time. So it almost shouldn't matter what color he is. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Right? And still, we had the same reaction. Michael Jordan gave this interview saying, had I known what I know now about the backlash, I would not have taken this movie, right? Because people are going crazy about this. I'm not even going to go into that. Oh, I don't have my other picture here. But, you know, Star Wars is coming out with a new movie. And they have black stormtroopers. And so now there's this whole big thing on the internet. this is outrageous. There are no black people in Star Wars, right? So it does beg the question, like, what are these people doing? Does anybody work? Like, you know, you have kids, you have like a real job? Like, why are you on the internet arguing about whether there are black stormtroopers in Star Wars? Right? But again, it goes back to what we're saying about being truthful. I'm out of time, but I'm going to try to wrap up in like 5 minutes, because I'm sorry. I'm out of time. Okay, I got to hurry up. I got so much more to go. Okay, so we'll just skip through some stuff. This is like afterwards. We'll talk about this. Okay, that really bothered me. So I want to just get quickly 5 minutes about solutions, right? We've been like this since birth, right? It's not your fault. It's not my fault that my brown child said, she swears she didn't say this. I should have videoed it, because now she's like, I didn't say that. You telling people that all the time. You know, she's a different kid now at 16, right? But she said it when she was 5, because it blew my mind. I had to pull over on the side and sit down and look at her in the car, because it just blew my mind, right? So I didn't create that. Like, I'm not racist. I'm not hating. I'm like, how did that happen? We've got to get out of this. You're calling me a racist. You're attacking me, and try to figure out. The problem is here. We have to figure out how to undo it. We have to figure out how to solve it. Part of that starts with us. As I said earlier, you got to clear your smogged air before you can help somebody else, right? So you've got some unconscious biases. You got to work on that first, right? Intention, right? Attention and time. You know, you've been like this all of your young life. It's not going to go away overnight. You know, you can't do something for years and then try something for 6 months and be like, what? No, it's not working. Right? This is a marathon. You got to be in for the long haul, because your mind is rooted. It's almost like a road, right? And you're trying to make a new road, but your car is going to always go back into that old road, right? So you got to keep consciously trying to step back over to create the new grooves, right? So that you can start a new chapter, right? And so the power of we got to talk to our kids. 2 fabulous psychologists out of the University of Chicago say not talking about race is the biggest problem we can make. Everybody's scared to talk about race. We got to talk about race, because if you don't talk about race, by 3 years old, your kid knows black is bad and white is good. Somehow. Just riding in the stroller down the park. They pick that up, right? So ask our churches to lead groups. We got to have schools, have safe spaces to have these conversations. Reach out to different people. We have to make friends. This is a color conscious movement, right? You got to become color conscious, right? Take that IAT test. Challenge your friends. Now this is the hard one, and so this is where I want to spend my last few minutes. When you see something that's not right, you got to say something, right? You can't let silence fill the void, you know? And I want to give you some examples of when people should have said something, right? And so this is the Ferguson riots versus the Pumpkin Fest in Keene, New Hampshire. In both situations, hundreds of thousands of dollars of property was destroyed. How that was depicted by the media, the words used varied depending on the color of skin, varied depending on class, all right? So this is in the first week of the Ferguson protests, right? There had been one fire, and it was a big one, the QT burned down, right? And then you've got this one over here. Thugs, rowdy, animals, mischief, right? Destroying their community, booze-filled revelers. Same language was used, by the way, last week with Ohio State. Ooh, we won a football game. Let's go destroy our community. But again, they were labeled revelers, celebrants, students, fans. Right? This is important, guys. This is not nothing. right? This is important. Labeling is important, right? You may remember Katrina, right? People coming out of the stores, the black people coming out of the stores with food were called looters. White people coming out of the stores with food, they were considered as having found food. This is true, right? This is important because when you use the word looter, that takes a person to a different level. When you use the word found food, that takes the person to a different level. Okay? So these things are important. This just came out the other day, right? And if these police officers in Florida, I forget the county, are taking practice target, what do they call it? Target practice on real people. These people are still alive walking the streets. And these are the target practice. You know, they used to be in the criminal system, but now they served their time, right? And now they're out, they've been rehabilitated maybe, they're working somewhere maybe, but they're still using their faces for target practice. Notice the color of all the faces. Now, Florida is not all black, and not all black people are in jail. And there are people in jail who are not black. I don't think you should do this at all, right? But at least have some diversity. Right? Call it out. Right? John Crawford III in a Walmart store, leaning on a BB gun, not even shooting, leaning on a BB gun, talking on his cell phone. He is killed by police officers. 2 drunk white boys go into Walmart, take down 2 BB guns, take them out the box, fill them with BBs, and shoot throughout the store. They are arrested without incident. That needs to be discussed. Tamron Rice, 12 years old, right? Playing with a toy gun in a park, in a playground. Nobody else is in the playground, right? His sister's off on the side somewhere. He's by himself. Within 2 seconds, I was just quiet for 2 seconds. That's how long it took to end his life. The wheels of the police car had not even stopped before he fell. Did y'all see the woman the other day in Tennessee? Full body armor, driving down a Tennessee street with a loaded gun, shooting at people. Let's say it again. Loaded gun, shooting at people. She was taken, quote unquote, without incident. These kinds of things need to be discussed, right? They have to be discussed, guys. We can't just act like this isn't true. People complain about black on black crime. It is 93%, and that's not good. White on white crime is 86%. I would suggest to you that that's not good either. I would suggest to you that that means we have a crime problem, not a black on black crime problem, right? You gotta call people out on this, right? 17 people were killed in connection with the Charlie Hebdo massacre. Almost at the identical time, 2,000 Nigerians were massacred. Virtually no media covered it. And then we say, well, all lives matter. Really? I can't even get one question at a press conference about those 2,000 people somewhere that died? And you get mad when I say all black lives matter? Black lives matter. You want to come back, well, all lives matter. Well, some lives matter just a little bit more. Right? And I am so happy that the U.S. State Department Secretary called this out in that press conference a week ago last Monday. Right? We have to call this kind of stuff out. Right? Because otherwise, for you to sit in silence, a lot of people, you guys are here, I'm so glad you tolerated me and all of that, you know, but when I go and talk to people, they may not hear me, right? Like if you are a Caucasian person sitting in this place, right? You might, and you understand what I'm saying and you got it, you may be in a way better position than me to reach your friends, right? Because they ain't gonna hear me, right? They will hear you. You gotta be able to say, well, wait a minute, let's look at this, right? Bring it out. We gotta call it out. Fix ourselves, call others out. Fix ourselves, call others out. I went over time, I'm sorry. Thank you for listening, and I'm happy to take questions.